Rain hit the penthouse windows the night everything broke. I still remember the sound. Soft, cold, relentless, just like the feeling growing inside my chest. For years, I believed my marriage with Vanessa Carter was perfect. I built my company from nothing while she lived the kind of luxury most people only posted about online. Expensive vacations, designer clothes, private parties, a penthouse overlooking the city skyline. And I gave it all to her willingly, because I loved her, because I trusted her. That trust made me blind. Ethan Brooks warned me more than once. "You work too much," he told me during lunch one afternoon. "I'm building our future," I replied. Ethan shook his head slowly. "Yeah, but who's building your marriage while you're gone?" I laughed it off back then. I wish I hadn't. The warning signs were always there. Late replies, secretive smiles while texting, random arguments over nothing. But every time doubt appeared, I buried it immediately, because trusting Vanessa felt easier than questioning her. That night, I came home earlier than usual after a client meeting got canceled unexpectedly. The penthouse was quiet. Too quiet. "Vanessa," I called out while loosening my tie. No answer. I walked into the living room and noticed her phone sitting on the marble counter beside a half-empty wine glass. The screen lit up suddenly. One message. One name. Damian Cross. My chest tightened instantly. I stared at the screen. "Miss you already." Tonight felt perfect. For a second, my brain refused to understand what I was seeing. Damian, her wealthy ex-boyfriend. The man she once described as a mistake from another life. I picked up the phone slowly. Another message appeared. "Can't wait to see you again tomorrow. Beautiful." My hands went cold. I heard the bathroom door open upstairs. Panic hit me instantly. I dropped the phone back onto the counter and stepped away just as Vanessa walked downstairs wearing a silk robe. Oh, she smiled. "You're home early." I forced myself to breathe normally. Meeting got canceled. She walked over casually and kissed my cheek. "You should have called." I stared at her quietly, at the woman I trusted more than anyone. And suddenly, everything felt fake. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I lied softly. That night, I barely slept. Vanessa curled beside me peacefully while my mind replayed those messages again and again. By morning, I already knew what I needed to do. I followed her. The realization alone made me feel sick. I never imagined becoming the kind of husband who secretly tracks his wife across the city. But betrayal changes people quickly. Vanessa told me she had a spa appointment downtown. Instead, I watched her walk into a private restaurant near the harbor, and Damian was already waiting inside. I stayed across the street staring through the glass windows while my entire world collapsed silently. She smiled at him differently, warmer, lighter, like the version of her I hadn't seen in years. Then he touched her hand, and she didn't pull away. I looked around the street. Everyone kept walking normally. Cars moved. People laughed. Meanwhile, my marriage died quietly 20 feet away from me. That evening, we attended a company dinner with close friends and business partners. I almost canceled, but I needed to see how far this lie actually went. Vanessa looked stunning in a black dress that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Everyone complimented her immediately. "You two are relationship goals," someone joked. Vanessa laughed loudly. I almost lost it right there. Ethan sat beside me during dinner and leaned closer quietly. "You look exhausted. Long week." He frowned slightly. "You sure?" Before I could answer, Vanessa raised her wine glass dramatically. "Have to say something," she announced, smiling. The table quieted immediately. She looked directly at me. "You know what Marcus's problem is?" My stomach tightened. "He's predictable." A few awkward laughs spread around the table. Vanessa continued anyway. "He works all day, talks about business all night. Honestly, sometimes he's just boring." The word hit harder than expected. Boring. Everyone looked uncomfortable instantly. Ethan set his glass down sharply. "Vanessa," he warned quietly, but she only laughed. "What?" "I'm joking." I forced a smile while humiliation burned through my chest. Damian suddenly walked into the restaurant at that exact moment. And when Vanessa noticed him, her expression changed completely. Subtle, but enough. Enough for me to finally stop lying to myself. After dinner, Ethan followed me outside while rain poured across the parking lot. What the hell was it he demanded angrily? She was drunk. No, Ethan snapped. She was cruel. I stayed silent. Ethan studied my face carefully. Marcus, what's really going on? I almost told him everything right there. The messages, the cheating, the betrayal. But before I could speak, my phone rang. It was Nathan from accounting. You need to check the transfer reports immediately, he said urgently. My chest tightened. What happened? There are unauthorized company transactions connected to Damian Cross's business accounts. Everything inside me went numb. How much? Nathan hesitated. A lot. I closed my eyes briefly. Vanessa didn't just betray our marriage. She betrayed my company too. That realization changed everything. I returned to the penthouse quietly hours later. Vanessa sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone casually. You disappeared after dinner, she said without looking up. I stared at her silently. At the woman who lied to my face while destroying everything behind my back. You tired? She asked finally. Something like that. She stood up slowly and walked toward me. You work too hard, she whispered while fixing my collar gently. The same hands touching another man hours earlier. I almost laughed. Instead, I stepped back slightly. Vanessa frowned. What's wrong with you tonight? For a second, I wanted to explode. Scream. Break everything. Demand answers. But anger would only warn her. And I suddenly understood something important. Vanessa still believed she controlled everything. My love, my loyalty, my silence. That was her mistake. Nothing's wrong, I said calmly. Then I walked into my office quietly and opened the safe hidden behind the bookshelf. Passports, emergency accounts, private documents. I stared at them for a long moment, then finally made my decision. I wasn't going to fight for someone who already chose another life. I was going to disappear from hers completely and destroy the illusion she depended on before she even realized I was gone. Near midnight, I packed a single bag silently while Vanessa slept upstairs. I paused briefly beside the bedroom door. She looked peaceful, comfortable, completely unaware her perfect world was already beginning to collapse. Then I walked out of the penthouse alone and never looked back. I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the city lights outside the cracked window while rain tapped softly against the glass. 2 months earlier, I had been sleeping in a penthouse beside Vanessa. Now I ate takeout noodles at a folding table and tried to remember what peace felt like. My phone buzzed. Have you eaten anything today? Lily asked the second I answered. I'm eating now. Noodles again? I laughed quietly. You always know. That's because you sound depressed every time you eat those terrible noodles. I'm fine. No, you're surviving. That's different. Her voice softened after that. You spent years taking care of Vanessa and your company. You forgot yourself somewhere in the middle. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. Maybe I did. You used to smile more, Lily whispered. Before her. Those words stayed in my head long after the call ended. The next morning, I walked into Carter Innovations wearing a dark coat and carrying a silence that made everyone nervous. Conversation stopped the moment I entered the office floor. Sophia followed behind me holding several folders. You have a board meeting in 20 minutes, she said carefully. I know, and Ethan already arrived. I nodded once and kept walking. Sophia hesitated before speaking again. You look tired. I slept fine. That wasn't what I meant. I glanced at her briefly. Unlike everyone else in the company, she never sounded afraid of me. Calm, honest, professional. It felt strange after years of emotional games with Vanessa. Inside the conference room, Ethan leaned back in his chair with coffee in his hand. There's the ghost himself, he said. I'm not dead yet. Could have fooled me. You vanished without warning. I needed distance. Ethan studied my face carefully. You still love her? The question hit harder than I expected. I don't know anymore. That means yes. I sat across from him and opened the financial reports. She moved company money to Damian behind my back. I know. She humiliated me in front of our friends. I know that too. And somehow she still acts like I'm the problem. Ethan sighed. People like Vanessa don't realize what they have until silence replaces attention. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Sophia placed another file in front of me. These numbers came from Victor Hayes, she explained. He's interested in funding the expansion project. Ethan raised his eyebrows. Victor Hayes? That old billionaire never trusts anyone. Apparently he trusts results, I replied. Sophia gave me a small smile. That's because you built this company before Vanessa turned it into a social club. The meeting continued for another hour. By the end, I felt something unfamiliar returning inside me. Control. Not over Vanessa. Over myself. Later that evening, Ethan and I met Victor Hayes at a private restaurant downtown. The older man looked intimidating even while calmly drinking tea. So, Victor said, watching me carefully, you're the man everyone suddenly stopped underestimating. I'm just rebuilding. Victor smiled faintly. Pain usually creates strong businessmen. Ethan laughed beside me. That explains why he barely sleeps anymore. Victor slid a folder across the table. I reviewed your proposal. I'll invest. I looked up immediately. Just like that. No. He leaned forward slightly. I'm investing because desperate men either collapse or evolve. You evolved. For the first time in weeks, I felt genuine confidence. Maybe leaving Vanessa had not destroyed me after all. Maybe it saved me. 3 days later, everything changed again. I had just started an important strategy meeting with Sophia when the office doors opened unexpectedly. Vanessa walked in wearing an expensive white coat and the same cold confidence I once worshipped. Every employee nearby froze. Her eyes locked onto me immediately. There you are, she said. Sophia calmly closed her notebook beside me. You can't enter during executive meetings without approval. Vanessa ignored her completely. We need to talk. I'm busy. Her expression darkened slightly. You disappeared from home. You stopped answering calls. What exactly are you trying to prove? I stood slowly. I'm not proving anything. Then why are you acting like this? I almost laughed. Like what? Like you suddenly don't care. The room became painfully quiet. Sophia looked between us carefully, but stayed silent. Vanessa stepped closer. Damien was a mistake, she admitted. I just needed excitement. And humiliating me publicly was exciting too. Her face tightened. You were becoming distant. I was building a future for us. You were obsessed with work. I stared at her in disbelief. You moved company money behind my back. That money was temporary. You betrayed me. Vanessa crossed her arms defensively. So now what? You want me to beg? Before I could answer, Sophia spoke calmly beside me. He has an important meeting, Vanessa. Vanessa finally looked at her properly. For the first time, uncertainty appeared in her eyes. And who exactly are you? I'm someone who respects him. That single sentence hit harder than shouting ever could. Vanessa looked back at me slowly. You replaced me already? No, I answered quietly. I just stopped chasing someone who never valued me. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. For years, I had been the man begging for her attention. Now I was standing calmly while she struggled to understand why she no longer controlled the room. Vanessa glanced at Sophia again, then back at me. Fear. I finally saw it clearly in her expression. Not fear of losing money. Fear of losing me. And for the first time since my marriage collapsed, I realized something important. Walking away had changed her, but it had changed me even more. I watched Vanessa leave the office without another argument. The elevator doors closed slowly between us, and she never looked away from me once. Sophia remained beside me in silence until the lobby became quiet again. Then she handed me the meeting notes and smiled faintly. Welcome back, she said softly before walking into work. The city looked cold from my office window. Rain slid across the glass while traffic lights blurred below like fading stars. 2 months earlier, I would have been sitting beside Vanessa at some luxury restaurant while she laughed at messages from Damien behind my back. Now I sat in silence reviewing expansion contracts for my new project, and somehow I felt lighter. Sophia walked into my office holding coffee. You've been staring at the same page for 10 minutes, she said. I'm thinking. That usually means trouble. I accepted the coffee from her with a quiet smile. You know, she continued, sitting across from me, people are starting to fear you again. I don't want fear. No, but respect finally came back. That word stayed with me. Respect. I had spent years sacrificing my dignity just to keep Vanessa happy. Now, people listened when I spoke. Employees stopped doubting me. Investors trusted me again. Meanwhile, Vanessa's world was collapsing piece by piece. Ethan called me later that night. You seen the news yet? he asked immediately. No. What happened? Damian Cross is trending everywhere. I open my laptop quickly and search his name. Multiple articles appeared instantly. Fraud allegations, unpaid debts, scam investigations. My jaw tightened while reading everything. Ethan laughed bitterly. Looks like your replacement, Prince Charming, isn't doing too well. I leaned back slowly. And Vanessa? She's still defending him publicly. That won't last. No. Ethan agreed quietly. It won't. Around midnight, my phone lit up. Vanessa. I stared at her name for several seconds before rejecting the call. A message appeared immediately after. Please talk to me. Another one followed. Everything is falling apart. Then another. I miss you. I locked the phone without replying. For years, I had answered every call within seconds because I feared losing her. Now silence felt stronger than begging ever did. 3 weeks later, Sophia attended a charity gala beside me as part of our company partnership launch. The ballroom glowed with golden lights while reporters moved between wealthy guests. Sophia adjusted her black dress slightly and looked at me. You hate these events, don't you? I hate fake conversations. She laughed softly. Then tonight will be torture. Before I could answer, several investors approached us. Mr. Carter, one of them said warmly, shaking my hand. Your expansion numbers are impressive. Thank you. Another investor smiled toward Sophia. You two make a strong team. Sophia glanced at me briefly before answering calmly. We work well together. As conversations continued around us, I noticed movement near the entrance. Vanessa. She stood frozen beside Damian while staring directly at me. For the first time since our separation, she looked uncertain instead of confident. Damian whispered something to her, but she barely reacted. Her eyes remained locked on me and Sophia. I could almost see the realization forming inside her. People respected me now, not because I was Vanessa Carter's husband, because I built myself back without her. Later that evening, Sophia and I stepped onto the balcony for air. That woman has been watching us all night, Sophia said quietly. I know. Does it bother you? I thought about it honestly. No. Sophia studied me carefully. That means you're finally healing. Before I could respond, the balcony door opened sharply. Vanessa walked outside alone. Her expression immediately hardened when she looked at Sophia. So this is why you changed, she snapped at me. Sophia crossed her arms calmly. Excuse me. You stole him from me. I almost laughed at the accusation. Sophia remained completely composed. He was never something you deserved. The silence afterward felt brutal. Vanessa stared at her in shock. You think you know him? Vanessa demanded. No, Sophia answered softly. I just know what respect looks like. You clearly never did. Vanessa looked like she wanted to argue more, but her confidence kept cracking every second. Finally, she turned toward me. You're really choosing her? I looked directly into her eyes. I'm choosing peace. That hurt her more than anger ever could. She walked away without another word. The next morning, chaos exploded publicly. Damian had secretly signed multiple business contracts using Vanessa's name and financial accounts. News spread across every media platform within hours. Fraud investigations began immediately. Legal teams started contacting her company. Even worse, Damian disappeared. Completely. I was reviewing documents in my office when Lily entered quietly. You heard? She asked. About Damian? Yeah. She sat across from me slowly. I saw Vanessa earlier today. I stayed silent. She looked destroyed. That's not my responsibility anymore. Lily nodded carefully. I know, but she finally admitted everything. I looked up. What do you mean? She told me she ruined her own marriage because loyalty bored her. Lily hesitated briefly. She said you love her honestly, and she kept chasing excitement instead. Those words hit me harder than expected. Not because I missed her, because I remembered how hard I had tried. Lily sighed softly. She said she thought you would always stay, no matter how badly she treated you. And now, she's terrified you won't. That night rain poured heavily across the city. I sat quietly near my apartment window while distant thunder shook the sky. My phone stayed silent for once. Then headlights appeared outside. A black car stopped near the building entrance. Vanessa stepped out slowly without an umbrella. Rain soaked her clothes instantly while she stood staring up toward my apartment window. For a long moment, neither of us moved. She looked smaller somehow, not like the powerful woman who once controlled entire rooms with a single glance. Just tired, broken, alone. My chest tightened painfully while I watched her standing there in the storm. Then she finally spoke through another message. "I know I destroyed everything. Please just talk to me." I stared at the words silently. Outside, Vanessa remained under the rain, waiting for someone who once would have run downstairs immediately to save her. But I stayed behind the glass without opening the door. And for the first time in years, she finally understood what it felt like to be abandoned.
Winter arrived quietly that year. The city felt colder than usual, but for the first time in a long time, my chest no longer carried constant anger. I woke up early every morning, worked beside people I trusted, and slowly rebuilt a life that no longer revolved around Vanessa Carter. Meanwhile, her world collapsed completely. Damien vanished after stealing money from investors across 3 companies. News channels replayed the scandal every day. Reporters connected Vanessa to his fraud immediately because she had signed documents without reading them carefully. People who once chased her attention now avoided even speaking her name. I watched the downfall from a distance. Not with satisfaction. Just clarity. One afternoon, Ethan dropped into my office holding his phone. "You should see this," he said. I looked up from my laptop. "What now?" "They froze Vanessa's accounts temporarily." I stared at him quietly. "She's drowning." "Yeah," Ethan replied softly. And Damien disappeared completely. Sophia walked in moments later carrying coffee for both of us. "You two look serious." Ethan handed her the phone. She read the article silently before looking toward me. "How are you feeling?" "Honestly?" I leaned back slowly. "Nothing." Sophia studied my face carefully. "That's probably healthier than hate." Maybe she was right. Hatred had controlled me for months after I discovered Vanessa's betrayal. Every memory felt poisoned. Every sleepless night replayed her humiliation over and over inside my head. But eventually exhaustion replaced rage. Then peace slowly replaced exhaustion. Sophia sat across from me after Ethan left. "You know," she said gently, "moving on doesn't always mean finding someone else." I looked at her curiously. "Then what does it mean?" "It means your happiness no longer depends on the person who hurt you." Her words stayed with me long after she returned to work. That evening my phone buzzed unexpectedly. "Vanessa." I almost ignored it automatically, but another message appeared. "Please. One last conversation." I stared at the screen for nearly a minute before replying. "Tomorrow. 7 o'clock. The cafe downtown." Her response came instantly. "Thank you." The next evening rain fell softly across the city streets while I walked toward the small cafe where Vanessa and I once shared our first date years ago. Back then she wore a red sweater and laughed over spilled coffee while I thought I had met the woman I would love forever. Funny how memories survive even after love dies. When I entered the cafe, Vanessa was already sitting near the window. For a second, I barely recognized her. The confident woman who once controlled entire rooms had disappeared. Dark circles sat beneath her eyes. Her posture looked smaller somehow. Fragile. She stood slowly when she saw me. "Thank you for coming." I nodded once and sat across from her. Silence settled between us for several uncomfortable seconds. Finally, Vanessa looked down at her hands. "I ruined everything." I stayed quiet. Tears filled her eyes almost immediately. I thought excitement mattered more than loyalty. I thought power mattered more than peace. Her voice shook badly. And now I lost everything that actually mattered. Outside, headlights blurred through the rainy window behind her. "You didn't just lose money," I said quietly. "I know. You lost yourself." She closed her eyes painfully. "I hurt you so badly." "Yes. I kept thinking you would never leave me." "That was your mistake." Vanessa wiped tears from her face with trembling hands. "Do you know what hurts the most?" she whispered. "You loved me honestly, and I treated that love like it was weakness." Hearing those words from her felt surreal. For years I had wanted accountability from Vanessa. Now that it finally arrived, I realized something strange. It no longer changed anything. She looked at me desperately. I know I don't deserve another chance. I remained silent. But please tell me something honestly. Her voice cracked completely. Did you ever stop loving me? The question hit deeper than I expected. I looked down briefly before answering. I stopped loving the person you became. Vanessa broke down crying after hearing that. Not dramatic tears. Real ones. The kind people cry when denial finally dies. Several customers glanced toward our table, but neither of us cared anymore. I destroyed the only person who ever truly cared about me, she whispered. I watched her quietly for a long moment. Part of me still remembered the woman I married. The woman who once danced barefoot with me in our kitchen at 2 a.m. The woman who promised we would build a future together. But another part remembered every humiliation, every manipulation, every sleepless night wondering why I was never enough for her. And that part of me finally understood something important. Love should never cost your self-respect. Vanessa looked at me through tears. Can we start over? I inhaled slowly. Then I answered honestly. I survived the pain you gave me. I won't return to it. Her expression shattered completely. For a second, I thought she might argue or beg harder. Instead, she just nodded weakly like she finally understood. I deserve that, she whispered. I stood slowly from the table. Vanessa grabbed my hand briefly before I could leave. I really did love you, she said through tears. I looked at her calmly. I know, but love without respect destroys people. Then I gently pulled my hand away. As I walked toward the cafe exit, I heard her crying quietly behind me, but I didn't stop. Outside, cold rain touched my face while city lights reflected across wet streets. And strangely, I felt free. Not victorious. Not angry. Just free. Weeks later, life continued moving forward. My company expanded faster than expected. Ethan became my business partner officially. Lily smiled more now that she no longer worried about me destroying myself over Vanessa. And Sophia remained beside me through all of it. One evening we stood together on a rooftop balcony during a company celebration while music played softly behind us. You look peaceful tonight, Sophia said. I think I finally am. She smiled gently. You deserve that. I looked out across the glowing city skyline and realized how much my life had changed. Pain had not destroyed me. It rebuilt me. Somewhere out there, Vanessa was still living with the consequences of her choices. The luxury lifestyle was gone. The power was gone. And eventually, even the memories of us would fade.
But I no longer carried hatred toward her, because the greatest revenge was never making her suffer. It was surviving without her. And as I stood beside people who truly valued me, I realized the life I thought I lost had actually been the beginning of something far better.